Hi y'all, this is Larry from Deep South Texas, and today we're back in the kitchen and we're going to make a very special holiday cheese bread. And what makes it special is we're going to put jalapeños in it, both red and green, suitable for a lot of holidays that are coming up. We have Thanksgiving coming up, Christmas, the Super Bowl, New Year's Day, a lot going on, and you're going to love this bread, and so is your family. Let's get started. Now, I will have a list of ingredients in the description of this video, but I'll try to go through them as I use them as well. First of all, we have 1 cup of water that's just warm to the touch. And to the water, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar. And I'm not going to mix that up yet. I'm just going to throw that in. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. And we're just going to let that set on the surface till that yeast soaks up a little bit of water. Then we're going to mix that in. Now, while we're waiting for that yeast, let's start on the dough. Here we have 2½ cups of bread flour. And I really recommend bread flour for this recipe. We're going to be mixing a lot of stuff into this dough, and using bread flour will help it to set up a little bit better. And to this 2½ cups of bread flour, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, and then get that mixed up. And then we're going to add our cheese and jalapeños. And doesn't that look festive? So let's start with the cheese. We're going to mix this in. This is grated cheddar cheese, grated pretty coarsely. And we just mix that in a little at a time. Get that cheese covered in flour so it doesn't stick together through the kneading process. Mix it up, get it covered. And then we're going to do the same to our jalapeños. These are the green ones, 1/4 cup of green jalapeños. By the way, that was 1 cup of cheese, if I forgot to mention that. So 1/4 cup of green jalapeños diced up about into a 1/8 inch dice. 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch works okay. I wouldn't get too much bigger than that or too much smaller. And then we're going to add the red jalapeños and mix those up as well. This is going to make a real colorful loaf of bread. And we are going to bake this in a loaf pan, primarily because a loaf pan will give the bread the right shape to fit in the toaster. And you really want to try this bread in the toaster. It is just amazing. There. So it looks like our yeast is mainly hydrated. Let's stir this all together. Again, this is 1 cup of room temperature water, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. We'll stir that all together and we'll wait for that to foam up. Well, it looks like that yeast has foamed up pretty well. let's go ahead and start adding our flour mixture to it. Remember, this is the flour, teaspoon and a half of salt, a cup of grated cheddar cheese, a quarter cup of green jalapeños, and a quarter cup of red jalapeños. So that's that we're going to mix a little bit at a time into the yeast and water. Well, I had to get my hands in there to kind of get it mixed up a little bit better, but it makes for a nice, colorful dough. Now I'm just going to let this dough set for about 10 minutes to let that water sort of even out within the dough, and then we're going to turn it out and knead it. Okay, let's turn out our dough and start the kneading process. This should take about 8 minutes. And if it feels a little too sticky, we'll add a little water, a little flour, just a teaspoon at a time. And if it feels too dry, we'll add a little water. Again, just a little bit at a time, less than a teaspoon probably. Right now, it's feeling a little bit on the dry side, but we'll see, because usually during the kneading process, it starts feeling stickier, so we might be okay. Look at how nice and colorful this dough is. Real festive. Great for holidays. Actually, it's great for any time. I've made this bread 4 times in the last 2 months. I love it, and the family loves it too. Anyway, we're just going to knead it for 8 minutes. The dough should feel a lot better by then. There, the kneading is done. And does that dough look beautiful or what? I have taken the original mixing bowl, cleaned it up a little bit, and put some butter on it. Oiled it up with a little butter. Now we're going to put our dough in there. We're going to cover that with plastic wrap and let it rise for 1 hour. Well, our dough has risen. And it does look colorful. Let's sprinkle just a little flour on top and then turn it out onto the breadboard. There we go. Now we're going to begin the pre-shaping process. We're going to pat it out a little bit. And then bring it together, shape it into a ball. What we're attempting to do is build some tension on the bottom side of this dough ball to get it smooth. It's sort of a losing proposition with all these peppers and cheese in there, but we'll try to get it as smooth as we can. And sprinkle a little bit more flour on top. And then we'll just cover that for about 15 minutes. And then we'll come back and do the final shaping. All right, let's do the final shaping on our festive holiday jalapeno cheese bread. Now, we're going to put this in a loaf pan, which I have oiled with a little butter. And that pan is 8.5 inches long by 4.5 inches wide, 3 inches deep. So first, we just flatten it out. And then we're going to form it into this trapezoid shape. And what we want is the bottom, let's see if we can get the bottom in the camera here, to be about as wide as our loaf pan. So we'll continue to flatten that out. And just a little bit farther to go on that. So that looks pretty good. Now, we're going to roll it up. Give it a little pull, roll it over, pinch it in, make sure all these layers stick to each other. So how do we do? Well, about 1/2 inch too long, I think. That's going to be okay. Now, we're going to throw down some flour. And roll it up in the flour and get both ends as well. Just, I think it's going to make it rise a little bit cleaner. And we'll put the seam side down. Then we're going to cover that with some plastic wrap and let that rise for another hour. So on the plastic wrap, I think I want to put some flour on the plastic wrap as well. And we're going to cover that and let that rise for an hour. Well, it's been almost an hour and our bread has risen. And it's looking pretty good, looking pretty good. I have preheated the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And so now we're going to put it in the oven to bake. And the expectation is it's going to take about 40 minutes. I'll start looking at it at 35, and at some point I'll make a decision to say it's done. But let's get it in the oven now. Now I'll turn that around 180 degrees when it's about halfway through cooking time, at about 20 minutes. So we'll see you when it's all baked. Well, it's been 45 minutes. Let's get that bread out of the oven. And there it is. Now I'm going to brush the top with a little melted butter. Try to keep it a little softer. Though this bread is fine if it's a little crusty as well. Okay. Now let's see if I can get it out of the baking pan. They usually come out pretty well. Yeah, that's going to come out okay. And there it is. All right. Now, we need to let this cool down so we can slice it up. And once it's cooled, we're going to give it a try. And I can tell you, it smells wonderful. It really does. So I think you're going to love it. All right. Our jalapeno cheese bread has cooled down. Let's cut into it and see how it looks. Okay. Well, I'd say that turned out pretty nice, pretty nice. The red jalapenos stand out quite a bit, but there's green ones in there too, just as many green ones. Anyway, now we want to toast one of these up because that's really the way to eat this bread. It is just terrific. All right. We've got a piece toasted. Let's put a little butter on that. It doesn't get any better than that. The cheddar cheese and the jalapenos just go together perfectly in this bread. You can see how yellow this bread is. That's from the cheddar cheese. Really happy with the way this turned out. My family loves this bread, and your family will too. It's pretty easy to make. All the ingredients will be in the description, and the video shows you exactly what I did to make it. So I hope you give it a try. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it that thumbs up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.